Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I'm never, it's.
I got
really
one is
fine.
recording. Yeah, I guess he
Nights and
sent a
taking care of
message.
the kids after.
Pending start.
Yeah. Went to my wife. Kudos to
Come
my
on.
wife for having to watch the kids while I'm here. I mean,
Come on, there,
no,
done.
no, she works.
Okay,
she gets,
good,
She just
yes.
has to take care of the kids all night. So, yeah, it's a lot for her too.
Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call to order the City of Oconomowoc Common Council meeting for Tuesday, November 16th, 2021. Has appropriate meeting notification been made?
Yes, Your Honor, it has.
If you'd all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Alderman Zaffel, Alderman Ellis.
Here.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Here.
Alderman Mulder.
Here.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Here.
Alderman Kavieski. Alderman Douglas.
Here.
Alderman Rozak.
Here. Thank you all. We have 3 public hearings today. One with regard to the Olympia Water Tower rezoning, the other with regard to some text amendments, and the final with regard to Lake Country Marine CUP. If you would like to make a comment during these public hearings, there are blue cards. You can see them right up at the front. Mr. Gallo will be happy to take those. So we'll start off, Mr. Gallo, and we're going to go ahead and start off with our first public hearing. Do we have anyone that would like to make a comment on the water tower rezoning? You going to do a summary?
Yes, Mayor, Council, I will give a brief overview of this application for the rezoning of the water tower. The site is up on the screen. You can see it there. It doesn't have an address. It's the northwest corner of Unity Drive and Commerce Street. This is a rezoning application. It does contain an existing water tower on the property. The property itself is a 1/4 acre in size. Tonight, we're asking to change the zoning from general commercial to IP, which stands for institutional public. This would be then consistent with the other water towers in the community. There's no need to change the land use plan. I'll show you that. This is our current zoning map, or a partial of our entire city map, and it shows that under the ERC there's a little square, that's the rectangular site. It's already created, but it has red on the zoning map, which is general commercial. And our land use plan, the same area right there is shown as blue, so we anticipated someday this could be institutional, governmental, so it is, we don't need to change the comprehensive plan, it's just a zoning at this time. The city recently acquired this property, so it's now under our ownership, and since we own it, we figured we should get it consistent. Again, if approved, it would be consistent zoning with all the other water towers in the city. We have a few others. The Plan Commission back on November 3rd did recommend the ordinance to rezone it from general commercial to institutional public. My recommendation is to approve the ordinance that's in your packet as drafted, as submitted. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody in the audience have a public comment for us today on this public hearing? Any comments on the water tower rezoning? This time I'll close the public hearing on the Olympia Water Tower rezoning. Move on to our next public hearing on text amendments.
All right, for this one, I don't have a fancy presentation, but I'll just give a verbal report for this. I'd like to introduce the public hearing. This is a code regulation text amendment. It removes duplicate public hearings from the zoning ordinance, the shoreline wetland ordinance, and the floodplain ordinance. What it removes specifically is the requirement to have duplicate public hearings before the Plan Commission. So the public hearings would be shifted and be entirely in front of the Common Council, this body here. There's many advantages to doing this, mostly for the residents of the community. Number one is they don't have to come to 2 public hearings. Okay, they come and they speak at a plan commission meeting, and then they find out it's only a recommendation to this body. Second, you'd be hearing all the comments yourselves. If they pick and choose one of the public hearings to go to and they happen to go to the plan commission, there's no way to get you that information. So, you know, it's much better for the residents to get their voices to the actual policy makers. Another important aspect of this is the Plan Commission, who's currently holding these hearings, that would be removing them, they're not supposed to be the policy makers or get involved in the emotional feedback. They're chosen to sit on Plan Commission for a very specific reason, for their qualifications and their expertise in governmental and everything like that. They're not supposed to be hearing the emotional side of some of these topics that come before you. That's mostly your job. So you want a recommendation that's based on their sound decisions. So for these reasons, I'm recommending that we just remove the public hearings from the Plan Commission and have recommendations come and then have all the hearings in front of the Common Council. That's what this text amendment is about, and I'd be happy to answer questions later in the meeting.
Does anybody in the public for this public hearing wish to make a comment on these text amendments to remove the dual public hearings? So any comments for this public hearing? Okay, then let's go ahead and we will close this public hearing. We'll move on to the next one, which is Lake Country Marine Conditional Use Permit, CUP. Mr. Gallo.
I do have a PowerPoint that I will show you real quickly on this third and final public hearing. Security alert. That's not what's on my screen here. Okay, sorry about the interruption. We have a public hearing for the Lake Country Marine and Motorsports conditional use permit for vehicle service at 54 Capitol Drive. The location of this is, again, at 54 Capitol Drive. You can see it's outlined in yellow. I gave you some reference points where Capitol Drive. It's on the west side of the city. It's kind of between Weston Meadows and Shore Haven, up in that area. It is zoned industrial right now. This is the site plan and overview shot, and I'm just going to kind of show you where Lake Country is going. It's a multi-tenant building. They're taking the I don't know if you want to call it the north or the west half, about half. It's 100 by 105 area. It's 10,500 square feet. The request is a conditional use permit for boat and other motorsports equipment repair. Consistent with the land use plan, and we identify this site in the land use plan as industrial, and this use is an allowed use. So this is what the building looks like. I'll get this red thing out of the way from the street, okay? And then I'm gonna walk you through, there's signage already there. It's telling you to go to the last door, and this is from the road, kind of the area. This is for the drop off of the boats. So you kind of pull in, there's a very wide spot. You can make the turn, drop your boat, and then turn around. Those overhead doors, those are the business itself. And that's how you exit the site. So you can see there's a lot of asphalt there for maneuverability of the boats. And these are the overhead doors. Right here is the door to go in. I went in this door. It says Lake Country Motorsports and Marine there. So the doors are in there. And inside the building, there's room for, I forget the number, if he said about 30 boats or so. So it's inside the shop there. So they're doing upholstery work over in this brown area, and they do all the other stuff. They do a variety of stuff, snowmobiles, jet skis, boats, all recreational stuff. So we do have conditional use permit standards for boat repair. Number one is all boat repair shall be conducted inside the building, which they will be. No outdoor storage unless screened in a designated area. And the Plan Commission had some comments about that. C is all vehicles shall be parked on a paved surface. D is security cameras per the city police, and they are installing security cameras. Hours are only between 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. Now, that doesn't include a boat drop-off in the evening, but they can't work past those hours and then comply with all other city ordinances. The Plan Commission recommended this back on November 3rd. We're having a public hearing, and it's on the agenda for tonight for action. So their operations, I know you want to know a little bit about it. They're using about half the building. Lake Country Marine will service boats, snowmobiles, ATVs, and jet skis. It's mostly repair, restoration, upholstery, and custom work. They will not be doing like fiberglass structural work, painting, or welding. That's all in their write-up in their plan of operations. We're going to recommend you approve the conditional use. And I brought the permit because the Plan Commission did make a change, which I incorporated into your permit, outside storage of boats. I had written initially, it's condition number 4, that there will be no outdoor storage of boats, parts, or equipment related to the business. The Plan Commission asked that you change that to be a little bit more encompassing, since they do work on jet skis and snowmobiles and other stuff. They said, so any motorsport vehicles, and that has been updated in your permit. So we all know with conditional use permits, the public hearing is held before the Common Council. We did not hold a public hearing at the Plan Commission, and you do know that they have to meet those standards, and that would be part of your motion. And I know the applicant is available here tonight to talk as well.
Thank you. So I'd like to entertain public comment. When you come up to this microphone, if you'd please announce your name and your full address and city and where you live. And then you have approximately 3 minutes if you want to share your thoughts for council. It's not a time that we debate things back and forth. When this item comes up in the agenda, that's when the council will address these different concerns. Mr. Higbee, is this correct?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me? My name is Michael Higbee. I live in Ashepin, which is technically still Oconomowoc, but it's Ashepin. But I own a business at 1195 Summit in Oconomowoc. I'm really in favor of voting for the changes in the conditional use permit, and here's why. For the last 7 years as a assistant scoutmaster in Troop 12, Mr. Gigax, the owner of the facility, has been very gracious in allowing us to just use the parking lot to offload our mulch. It's a large fundraiser for the troop, and he doesn't charge us anything for this and allows us to use the forklift and storage of the mulch overnight when the truck offloads it. The scouts have helped him clean up the lot before, and recently he's done a very good job of actually repurposing the whole lot and cleaning everything up. I've never seen an issue with anything that Mr. Gigax, the owner of the business, does with the property. And so I'm just here in support of the fact that everybody thinks about voting for the change in this. In all clarity, I've known Mr. Gigax since we were in 2nd grade together. And I'm not going to hide that fact. So he's not only a very good friend, but he's been very good in the community with my goals and stuff of giving back to the community. I was over there the other day to see the new business, and it's inside. It looks like it's set up very nicely, and everything's clean and tidy. And I hope that everybody here sees fit to vote approval of this. I want to thank everybody here on the council for your time and giving me an opportunity to address you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dave Gigax, please.
Mayor, council members, I'm Dave Gigax. I live in Waukesha, but I own the building out here. So I'm just here to answer any questions relative to the building. I've owned it since 2012, so if there's any issues about inside or outside, I'm here to field those. Anything?
Yeah, we'll take questions in the next section, so
Okay.
if you have any other comments. Thank you. Scott Rosen.
Good evening. My name is Scott Rosen. I'm the owner of Lake Country Marine Motorsports. Just want to thank you for the opportunity to stand before you. We bring a value to the community that none of the other big dealerships do. They don't like to mess with boats that are 10 to 15 years and older. That's kind of where we come in. We'll take a person's boat that doesn't have 100 grand and go blow on a new one. We'll rehab it. We'll make it look like it's new. So yeah, we bring something a little different to the table. I hope you guys, see the value in that and approve everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comments on this item? Any more comments? I'd like to close the public hearing on the Lake Country Marine CUP. Move on to entertain a motion to approve minutes of November 2nd, 2021.
So moved.
Rozak, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, we'll move on to comments or suggestions from citizens. You'll notice on your agenda, we had a proclamation that is going to be postponed until our next council agenda, council meeting, but we will entertain any other comments that you may have at this time. If you have a blue card, want to comment on anything, this is your time. With no further comments, we'll move on to our consent agenda items. I'd like to entertain a motion for the consent agenda items as reported.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
On to committee reports. We'll start off with finance. And consider act on final resolution 21-R2989 to special levy assessments for the Lake Street Sanitary Sewer. Mr. Fry.
Thank you, Mayor. The item before you tonight is, as mentioned, is for the assessment of sanitary sewer and water that were installed a couple of years ago in order to service the Evans Senior Center. That's on South Silver Lake Street. Sanitary sewer that was extended will also serve the Grace Bible Church when it comes time that they will need to hook up to that. So they're sharing a portion of that cost, $22,000, and the Evan has $33,000 of the sanitary sewer. The Evan also had to extend water main for their purpose, and they're 100% responsible for that $116,000 cost. The church, should they ever need water, would end up having to extend the water main across their property, and that would then be at their expense. So that's why they're not part of the cost share of the water main extension on this project. So the church is $22,000. The recommendation is that that be deferred at no interest until either sale of property or connection. And then for the Evan, they've offered to buy down from the $149,900 that they're at down to $100,000, and then have that assessed over 5 years at 3.35% interest. So that's the recommendation that's in your packet tonight, and we support that recommendation.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Fry? Alderman Rozak.
Just for the record, in the committee meeting, you said that Grace Bible Church property came in from the village?
That came from the town of Summit as part of the border agreement.
And so when they come in, they're on well
and septic.
and septic, so they don't want to connect right now. And so in those type of circumstances, it's not unusual for us to defer you
Correct.
receiving those funds, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Like to entertain a motion?
Rozak, so moved.
Thank you.
Mulder, second.
Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
On to utilities, consider act on resolution 21-R2993, amending the wastewater utility rates in 2022. Mr. Shu.
Yeah, so 2 weeks ago, the utility committee passed recommended the 2022 utility budgets and a increase in rates for the wastewater utility. And so those two items were then just earlier this evening also approved and recommended by the committee of the whole. So I'll talk about those two items concurrently. So of the three utilities, the budget's planned for the 2022, the wastewater utility has a $4.3 million budget, offset by about $3.94 million worth of operating expenses. The wastewater utility of the three utilities is the only one that has a rate increase built into it for 2022. That's a 3.9% increase. For residential customers, it's about 3.2% increase. The impact on that would be about $10 a year for an average residential customer. The other two utilities, wastewater and electric, do not have rate increases built into them for next year. The water utility has an operating revenue of about $4.1 million, offset by $3.3 million of expenses. And the electric utility, as you can see, has an operating revenue budgeted of $23.9 million, offset by operating expenses of $23.3 million. Within those budgets as well, all three utilities are very capital intensive as we maintain that infrastructure that we own. As part of that, we reinvest a good part of our revenues into new infrastructure. So all three of the utilities do have that investment in their capital projects. For the three utilities combined, it's $13 million. For the wastewater utility, it's $6 million. Of that, about $3.8 million is for a secondary digester cover. The water utility has $3.2 million. About half of that is for street projects, and then $1 million of that is for well 8 costs. And then for the electric utility, they've got capital projects in their budget of $3.7 million, and of that, about $2.2 million is for just underground infrastructure, cable replacements, and voltage upgrades and things like that. So with that, if there aren't any further questions, what we're requesting is approval of the wastewater utility rates as presented, and then also approval of the overall utility budget. There are 2 items that that were changed since the physical binder that was distributed to you. So that is, there was a wastewater project for $50,000 that was added, and then we built in some savings to each of the 3 utilities from a shared position that was converted from full-time to part-time.
So for the community, this has gone through 2 levels of review by council, one at their committee level, and then also at a committee of the whole meeting earlier this evening, as they've gone through these budget items. Any questions for Mr. Shu? Alderman Shellpepper.
I've got a question on specifically the wholesale contract rates, and, you know, I mean, just for those, residents watching, why are for example, the Ixonia, Mary Lane, LaBelle wholesale contract rates less than the city of Oconomowoc? Can you speak to that?
Sure. So for the wastewater utility, they do have 7 outlying sanitary districts, and each one of those we provide a different level of service based on, physically how we're connected to them. Some of them we only provide wastewater treatment.
Okay.
And which ones do you say specifically? Just as an example.
Ixonia?
Okay, yeah, so for the ones on the west side of Lac La Belle, there's 3 sanitary districts out there where they own their own collection system, and they even own their own pipe that brings it to our treatment plant. So the only service we provide to them is the treatment of the effluent at the treatment plant. So that's why their rates are lower.
Okay, so it's based on the service
Correct.
that's being provided?
Correct,
And
yes.
that's, okay.
Yeah, and each of them are different based on the varying levels of service that we provide to each of them.
Okay, and that's negotiated annually, or every, I mean, because it's a contracted rate, what's the contract?
Yeah,
based
so
on
there's
time?
a detail, there's an existing rate agreement with those sanitary districts. So then each year, as we do the budget, we update that cost of service study
Okay.
that calculates that.
Thank you.
I'd like to entertain a motion. Alderman Rozak.
I'll make a motion in a minute, but what we didn't explain to the folks that are watching is what that rate increase is for wastewater. It's 3.2% for the average residential customer and probably about 5.6% for commercial customer, correct?
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
And just so folks know, for the wastewater in particular, our rate of return isn't, it's not like we're knocking it out of the park. We had a rate of return in 2020 of 5.7%. Now we're down to 2.34%. So, that small rate increase is kind of essentially offsetting some of those reductions in our rate of return. So that's all I had. Thank you. I'll move to approve the rate increase for wastewater as outlined in the memo.
Second. Ellis.
Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Next up is, our next item is consider act on the adoption of the 2022 utility budget. I'd like to entertain a motion.
So moved, Ellis.
Second, Shell Pepper.
Any further discussions or questions for Mr. Shu?
Well, I just, we guys, we have to add in the 50% capital contingency for that extra project and the savings from the allocated finance position to that motion. So if you guys will amend that motion to add those things.
I want to amend that.
Second.
So second?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Any further discussion? Alderman Spiegelberg?
So how much approximately, John, are we saving going from that allocated full-time to part-time?
Across the three utilities, I think combined, it's, I've got, $17,000 across the three utilities combined.
Thank you.
Okay, call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Great. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to some Plan Commission items. Council, just please note that the first two items are the first readings. You have the option to waive the second reading depending upon what you would like to do. So we'll start off first with consider act on ordinance 21-01022 to rezone lands IP institutional public district for the Olympia Water Tower. We've heard that discussion from Mr. Gallo. I'd like to entertain a motion.
I'll move to accept ordinance 21-01222, waiving the second reading.
Second, Shell Pepper.
Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
On to the second item, consider act on ordinance 21-01023 for text amendments to section 17.8026, 17, et cetera, eliminating duplicate public hearings. Again, you have the opportunity to waive the second reading. I'd like to entertain a motion.
So moved, Spiegelberg.
Second, Mulder.
Any further discussion?
Yeah.
Alderman Ellis.
Yeah, I don't know, I'm having a bit of a problem with this, and the reason it being is because there's a reason and purpose in why we have planning, we have certain levels before it gets to us. And the concern that I have is that if we begin the process of taking away, in this case, that public hearing portion and bring it here, it's going to really increase the time at which we're listening. And the question here is, number one, do we have that time? And number two, do we have the attention span to be able to do that? I think that the way it is right now, there's a, by the time it reaches us, the way I see it, it's been, we don't really have to listen to 452 different individuals. We're listening to one or two or three individuals, and so there's I wish I could put in the words, a siphoning of the real issues associated with what they're trying to accomplish. So I don't know if we really want to do away with that. I think that it's worked in the past. I don't know. I'm just giving that as discussion.
I can make a comment on, roughly about 18 months of being on both the Plan Commission and the council. There's really no difference between the time commitment on each level. It's basically creating an opportunity that's better for the public, and it's also taking away issues that are really not the performed function of a Plan Commission. But I'll turn it over to Attorney Riffle.
So when I came in as city attorney, I found this to be unbelievable. The state law under 6223 says one public hearing. And I was like, we're going to go through this twice before the Plan Commission and then again, and every single public hearing on every controversial issue that I've sat through from a zoning perspective, it's duplicative. And from a perspective of a person that is trying to either, be a opponent or a proponent of something, they come here twice. And they're just, all I know is that the Plan Commission, and I have the assurance of the mayor, will allow people to speak no matter what on any issue that comes before the Plan Commission. It's just that you don't have to go through a Class 3 notice, which is what is required, which is 3 weeks for the Plan Commission, and then 3 weeks for the Common Council. I just think it is and I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to get into policy, but I just think it is counterproductive to trying to do business as a city. So I don't think it will change anything in terms of the public being able to come here before the Plan Commission and give them information that they can, take into account and give a constructive, recommendation to the Common Council or to the Common Council, who will ultimately, make the final decision. Now, under 6223, you could have the Plan Commission do the only public hearing, but I know this Common Council, and they do not want to have anybody else hear from the public other than you before you make your final decision. So that's my take on it, okay?
Thank you. Alderman Shell Pepper?
Yeah, I think it's kind of rich. We're trying to twist this as a public benefit by limiting the amount of public feedback sessions and hearings we have. That just doesn't line up with my logic and reasoning. I think the more we have, the better. I mean, why does it hurt? So we have to put out a Class 3 notice an extra time, and then citizens have an extra 3 weeks to hear this. The Plan Commission, as much as you want to say it's not a policy board, it's still voting. So they're still casting a vote. So before they make that vote, they should still have citizen input to do so, and it should be through a formal process. And to say that you can't relay the comments to us that they're making at the Plan Commission, that the citizens are making, is just, I mean, that's not right, because you've been doing it. So you're clearly able to relay the comments. So it doesn't make sense to me to do it, and I'd encourage everyone to vote against it. Just, why would we want to limit the amount of feedback and time our constituents have to, be aware of what's happening and weigh in on it?
Alderman Mulder?
I see your point on the public comment and giving them voice. I see this as the Plan Commission is our chance as council to have them be an objective body using their professional experience, which they all have in spades, to ascertain whether what's in front of them, meets our criteria or doesn't. And I don't think I personally don't want them swayed by public opinion. I want an objective read of that, so when it comes here, I know that experts in the fields have looked at it and they approve of it, as does our staff. And then the third leg of that is we bring in the public and they make commentary on it. And they aren't speaking as to whether or not this is aligning with our statutes and so on. They're commenting on whether or not it's the best thing for the city. That's not the job of the Plan Commission, that's the job of the council. So we have staff, we have Plan Commission, we have the community, and we weigh all three of those in, mixing them together to make our decision. I don't think, so for me, having Plan Commission remain as unbiased and as they can, and just relying on their professional opinion versus listening to a lot of commentary, which is not really germane to what their role is. So that's my opinion on it.
Alderman Spiegelberg?
Yeah, I agree with Alderman Mulder. I think it is duplicative. And as long as the public still has the opportunity to speak, which would also, bode to Alderman Shell Pepper's desire, I think that is a good compromise. My question would be also, how did this ever happen in the first place? And Stan, do you deal with other municipalities that still have these double public hearings?
My firm represents 54 municipalities or 58. I don't know of an other municipality that requires 2 full-blown public hearings under 6223.
We know how this happened in the first place, the history of it here?
No, I have no idea. I can't talk to Bill so I don't know.
Mr. Gallo?
I'd like to respond to Alderman Shellpepper. I know it sounds really odd that this is in the public benefit. And also you asked about, relaying the message back to the council. I'd like to respond to both of those items. It is in the public's best interest because I've heard from more than one person that come to the Plan Commission and then they find out there's a second public hearing. That means they got to come out twice. And they get burned out by coming to public hearings. A lot of people don't like to speak here. It's a night away. Number two is, I do try to relay the message of what the public comments were the best I can, but you don't hear the emotion at the Plan Commission meeting if you're not there. We don't televise those meetings. You don't hear it. Some of the omissions, get quite emotional. And if someone is speaking at the Plan Commission, it'd be best for the council to hear the passion that some of the residents have. So that's why I thought it is in the best interest for them to get their message in front of the Common Council.
Alderman Shellpepper?
So it sounds like a communications problem, ma'am. Maybe we're not communicating properly as to, in terms of the process and how it unfolds, and maybe that's something the communications intern could work on. And then second of all, why wouldn't we want to have more dates available? So we're going to give people only one date, and if they can't make that date, well, tough luck. You can't be there then. At least we're going to have 2 dates then where people can make it. Seems like a reasonable thing, and I'm not going to beat a dead horse.
Alderman Rozak?
Yeah, boy, I came in pretty solid on changing this. I think Chaz does bring up some interesting points. I can kind of see this splitting out both ways. I think what harm, I guess in Chaz's point, what harm is it if there's 2 public hearings? I mean, people don't have to speak at the Planning Commission. And I don't know that the planning commissioners are necessarily like, at least the people that are on the Planning Commission now, I don't consider experts in like development. It's not like no, not at all. And I've watched them in action. I don't consider them experts in planning or development at all. There's no specific.
That's not fair.
This is the best planning commission I've ever worked with.
Okay,
Say
well,
that again.
They're awesome.
okay. So
They're awesome.
do I get a chance to talk on,
No, we're happy to have you here comment. That was just a surprise, so.
Well,
go
I
ahead.
don't think that they are, first of all, the Planning Commission is different than Architectural Commission, where you have to actually be an architect to be in the Architectural Commission. You don't have to have any specific qualifications to be on the Planning Commission. We can pick anybody we want.
Well, the ordinance talks about knowledge
Sure.
in construction, development.
Sure, but they don't have to have, like, they don't have to be an engineer. They don't have to be an architect, like we do in the Architectural Commission. There's not a specific requirement like you do have on the Architectural Commission, or like you have for a city attorney role, where you have to be an attorney, or you have to be a city engineer. So we have people on the commission that I've watched them in action. I don't necessarily consider them experts in every single one of these development plans that have come forward. In fact, I have seen, the ballpark is the most recent example of things going through the Planning Commission with no changes. So I don't know that not having the public there to talk is a smart thing, so that those commissioners can hear the concerns before they send it on to us. And for years, in juxtaposition to the debate about whether they're good or not, I for years have said the commission doesn't make a lot of changes. They don't seem like they do a whole lot to help us. Things get moved forward every other time. In fact, I've heard the commissioners say on several occasions, we'll move it on because the council's gonna have the final say anyway. So I think they should hear from the people.
Wow, okay, I'm sorry, you just caught me way off guard because this should be a really easy thing because it's so clear. Matt, go ahead.
Having been on Plan Commission just a short time, I'm blown away by their level of expertise, and they ask questions of each other that no one here would ever ask of ourselves. They think of things at a very different level that I've never heard us discuss at those things. So I think they're highly qualified, and I like if they're not being as critical, then we could ask them to be more critical, and perhaps they would. But I don't think that having an emotional weigh-in from the community helps them do their job. I think it hinders them in doing their job, because we want an objective reading of what they're looking at, not That's just, I think, the role they fill. They're an advisor to us. We don't want that advisor to be filtered through something that we're going to hear ourselves. We want unvarnished opinion from them. So I think it's better as a standalone. I think it's more effective plan commission without a public hearing than I think it is with a public hearing.
Well, and to your point about what happened at the ballpark, I can't comment to that. All I can comment is from April of 2020 moving forward, and it's really a good cohesive group of people. And what's fascinating is a level of detail that they go into, but you guys aren't experienced, and a lot of those discussions are actually before the meeting, so we can do diligence, so we can also help the developer or the planner have answers so that when we come, we can take an action. So I hear what you're saying, and I think it's all open for you guys to decide, but I think it's really important that these things do get separated, and if it was so important to have public hearings in both Plan Commission and a council, why is it not happening in a lot of communities around us? I'm not saying that we're right or wrong, but there's usually a reason for that. So that's just a very personal, strong bias since I've been on the Plan Commission. And I think until you're on it, it's hard to get that perception. And I think it's fair to maybe make assessments that you're trying to do what you can to give everybody an opportunity to talk. But when you talk to a developer, when you talk to the people that have to go to these things, it truly is a public benefit for them to focus on one. And it's not, and I respect your comment, Kevin, that, hey, well, then they're just more piling on one public hearing. That isn't happening because we see these same people. I've seen them for a year and a half, and it's the same stuff. And we really need an unbiased group at the Plan Commission to do the stuff that our planner is trying to make good strategic plans for a long period of time. When roads stop and a new development is supposed to be there, that road should go through. We don't want the political actions of an emotional audience to give you a recommendation on the council that isn't maybe in the best interest of the community. So we have a lot of little examples like that that have already happened just in the last year and a half. And so this agenda to remove it actually has been driven by me because I really don't feel that it's in the community's best interest or in the council's best interest if we continue to do it in that fashion. Now, we do have a motion on the table. It has been seconded. I don't remember if you waived the first reading or you did not, or if you want to. I didn't hear. And it's something we don't have to. You can leave it and we can bring it back again. But happy to continue and open up the discussion. This is something I'm pretty passionate about after experiencing it. But that's one person's viewpoint. Alderman Spiegelberg.
Well, it sounds like the biggest pushback is not being able to have the citizens be heard, but that is still a possibility because you said that the Plan Commission is more than welcome to hear any comments that anyone has to say. However, if this is not a formal process as far as in a public hearing, then it also saves the city time and money by not having to publish this and not having to do all the administrative work behind a public hearing.
And if you think of a developer that's trying to put something forward and they have to go through 2 public hearings, that's 2 public hearing notices. That's a delay in time and an increased cost to that process.
So one of my concerns would be, you're saying that is there comments and suggestions from citizens at the Planning Commission?
There's not a form line item. What the Plan Commission decided at the last one is that our recommendation was to bring this forward, and if anything comes and the public wants to comment on something that comes to the Plan Commission, we will allow that comment, and we will give that a try if you're willing to say, hey, let's get rid of the formal public hearing. Let's save that cost, let's save that delay, let's save what we think is actually to the benefit of the community, and let's see how it works. That's what the recommendation is from the Plan Commission.
So in that vein, I'm curious. So the last item that we just brought up, which is the water tower, again, these are kind of minor issues, but it sounds like there wasn't a public hearing at the Planning Commission despite that being in our ordinance right now.
There was.
Oh, Jason said there wasn't a.
There was a public hearing.
Okay.
Yeah, all of these were.
It was a Class 3 notice
I
and a
could have
public
swore
hearing.
someone just said there wasn't a public hearing on that.
Because remember, too, in the public hearing, they have to go out, they have to put the signboards up. It's not just putting an ad in the newspaper.
How
And
will
then
the
at the
public-
last public hearing for that Plan Commission, nobody came.
How will the public know that it can talk if there's not even a line item on the planning commission agenda or a public hearing notice.
Those would be the interested parties that come, and they'll be open for them to have conversation. We'll announce it at the Plan Commission.
I don't think that that's, in my head right now, I was in favor of making this change. I think it actually does make sense. I'm not willing to make the change until there's a formal line item on the planning commission agendas to actually allow people to make comments. Because, for instance, someone comes in for a planning change. They want to add a huge new development across from their farm that's on the edge of town. We're not going to let that person who's right next to it talk, or at least they don't know they can talk, or if there's not a line item on, maybe they won't say anything. Maybe they'll just sit in the back like, oh, I'm looking at the agenda, there's nowhere for me to talk. I don't like that, and maybe that's why it's always been part of our ordinances that we want people to have that extra opportunity. I don't know how much cost it is to do the notice. Diane, what's the cost for a notice for a public hearing?
That varies on the size of the notice. You know, we trim them down as much as we can, so,
Couple bucks, 20 bucks?
I mean, under 100.
I'm okay with doing it. I'm not gonna do it unless there's gonna be a line item for comments at the planning commission. So, if that's not part of it, then I'm not gonna vote in favor of it.
I just second Attorney Riffle.
Yeah.
So I sat through the Plan Commission meeting, and they unanimously said that there would be public comment allowed. I've sat through every single Plan Commission, but for about 5, and every single Common Council meeting, but for about 2 since I've been city attorney. There has not been a single item on any agenda since I've been here that the mayor and the former mayor has not invited public comment on every single agenda item that we have ever had here. So I don't think that we're going to change now.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
I think what Alderman Rozak is trying to get at is, we understand that it's welcome at those meetings, but how can the public be educated ahead of time to know that they can come and make those comments?
So he's basically saying, hey, there's a meeting, but you have no idea. But if you have a public comment, a part of the agenda item, that way, that's posted that way, so you have an opportunity to know that that's a possibility. So would you like to withdraw your motion in the second and reframe it?
So the reframing would be every single notice would include notice to the public, not on issues where there is a formal public hearing, but that on any agenda item, any individual will be allowed to comment.
The same way we have basically comments and suggestions from citizens, like we do on every council agenda. Does that sound like a good approach?
Absolutely.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds great. I'm happy we're gonna add something. It's still not proactive. It's still not reaching out. It's still not pushing to the public. They're still not being proactively informed of the discussion. So we're gonna add it to an agenda item that, you know, the majority aren't gonna see. I mean, that's one of the benefits of printing in the newspaper, putting the signs out. And I just think it's really rich. The key phrase I kept hearing here was the developers then do not have to attend 2 meetings. I don't care if the developer has to attend 2 meetings. What does that matter to me whatsoever, or anybody that lives here? One of the biggest issues in this community is development. That's what they want to hear about and talk about.
No,
So
I don't think anybody's
no,
chance that the
I heard, Mayor,
developer.
respectfully, I heard you twice say the developers, it's a hindrance to them to have to attend 2 meetings. You said that 2 times, Mayor. So I'm just saying that.
Did I?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
So,
Okay,
so
then
I just respectfully,
did, I
that's
stand
the farthest
corrected.
thing from my mind that I care about, so.
Well, they still have to go to 2 meetings, it's the public hearing part. So they always come to both meetings because it gives them the opportunity to bring comment. So they're at both meetings regardless. It's the public hearing part. But Jason, do you want to go forward?
There's been some concerns about public notice of these meetings, and I heard about the signs and putting it in the paper. That would all still happen. I mean, we're still going to have a public hearing before the council, so we are going to send the notices in the mail to people within 200 feet of the property. We're going to put the sign on the property. We're going to put it in the paper. So it's still, all the notice requirements are there. It's still going to be on our website. It's just a matter of not twice, but once. So we're just bringing the people for the one evening instead of two.
Yeah. As-
Alderman
as lo-
Rozak.
As long as that compromise is on, that I was getting to, Karen elaborated on it, which is that there's something in that planning commission agenda that says there's a chance for people to talk, because I don't know that the little poster boards or the mailers to a few people around it really get much
Oh,
attention
people see them
anyway.
all the time.
Yeah,
They
I
do.
mean, I don't know. I think as long as we're guaranteeing that there's some ability to do that discussion, it's not, I believe you, Mayor, that you would invite that every time that you were there, but I'm not worried about you, I'm worried about the next guy who decides that he's not gonna invite comments and he's never gonna let anyone talk.
If I can say one more thing,
I don't know, should we let him?
Yeah.
No.
okay?
Go ahead.
No.
Common council is single-minded. A lot of times they don't really follow the recommendation of the plan commission anyway. You are your own entity. You listen to what they say, you listen to what the people say, and you make up your own minds. So I think you should take comfort in that, and you are the ones that should be listening to the public. And if you lose people along the way that came to Plan Commission because, you know, the Plan Commission gave a recommendation to you that wasn't in line with what they wanted, wouldn't you want them here instead of there? And I've been doing this for 40 years. So I think that you have made a, determination that you are the final decision makers, and you certainly welcome the recommendation of the Plan Commission, but you want to hear from the people. You don't want them to waste their time before the Plan Commission, who may look at it through a different lens. That's my point.
So we have a motion on the table in a second. Do we want to withdraw the motion and rephrase it, or do we want to move forward and vote on it? Alderman Spiegelberg.
Well, I think I would like to put the amended verbiage in that Stan just rattled off prior and then waive the second reading.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Call roll,
And
please.
Diane, you got that verbiage down already, correct?
I do, yes.
Thank you.
Alderman Ellis.
Nay.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Nay.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Nay.
It's a tie vote, 3-3. Mayor,
Wow, you guys did it. I really don't ever want to vote, but I'm definitely an aye, so that's pretty easy.
so Mayor is voting yes. Okay, so it
Good,
carries.
robust discussion. Thank you, everybody. Let's move on to the next item. Consider act on, consider act on conditional use permit for Lake Country Marine and Motorsports located at 54 Capitol Drive. We've gone through that. Do we have any further questions, Council, for Mr. Gallo?
I have one.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Jason, are these the same operating hours that we have for like auto repairs? For some reason, I thought the auto repairs were a little bit more restrictive than this on their hours, or is this the same?
No, these are exactly the same, and it
Yes?
falls under
Okay.
vehicle service and repair, so
okay.
it's the same thing. I consider a boat a vehicle, so.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
I'd like to ask
Alderman Rozak?
a couple of questions for the guy that's actually running it.
Sure. Come on up, sir.
I'm sorry, I didn't write down your name, I apologize.
Scott Rosen.
Scott, I should have remembered that Rosen, it's basically the same as
Close
mine.
enough. And no relation, by the way, so.
Are you okay with, yeah, are you okay with the operating hours as they are?
I am, yeah. I mean, we operate as by appointment only.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, the hours are fine.
I guess I don't understand why we can't, can we expand the hours if they wanted to?
I mean, I would love it, just gives it a little bit more of a window. But, like I say, we're by appointment only. We don't have a retail front. We don't do retail sales. It is mainly word of mouth. So, yeah, I mean, I would love to have the hours expanded, but again, it's,
Is there an hour limitation in the ordinance or the CUP, Jason, for this work? Yeah, I think it's something we should look into in the future. I mean, if all the work's being done inside and it's in an industrial area, Why couldn't we let a business stay open longer and work on boats? I don't get it. I think we're too restrictive here. It looks like I can't do it for you because that's part of our ordinance right now. I'm going to be in favor of granting the CUP, but I think we should look into amending those hours for places like this that are fully industrial.
Would that be grandfathered, or would that be retroactive after the fact, or would I have to go for?
I think if we amended it, I think you could probably request an amendment to your
Okay.
CUP is my guess. Jason's shaking his head, so I think I'm correct.
Alderman Mulder?
So just in the document, customer service hours, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., is that the only, Jason, is that the only time customers can be on site, or it's, that those are the actual work hours? Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
that's right.
Oh,
I
Miss-
understand why we have those hours in there, but it's, a guy
Alderman
like
Shell
this.
Pepper.
Yeah.
Are you guys gonna be starting any of the snowmobiles or ATVs or anything like that outside, like outside of the garage? Will there be any starting of the
No,
equipment?
I mean, let me take that step back. Sometimes a customer may drop something off that has to be started and unloaded off a trailer, but that's the extent of it. I've invested in a forklift with extended forks, so I can pick things up and haul them right inside.
Okay, and then if there are snowmobiles being started, Stan, is there, there's already a noise ordinance in place that has to be complied with? Because I have heard some concerns from the neighborhood, what is it, Happy Hollow? That's right over on the other side of there. So there have been concerns about the noise, and I guess that's what I'm looking for reinsurance on.
Yes, absolutely. And like I say, everything is done indoors. We don't do any running outside. If it is, it's no louder than a vehicle.
Yeah.
We won't run, if an outboard motor. They're very loud out of the water.
Right.
Stuff like that is run indoors, for that reason alone.
Mhm.
So, yeah, everything that is, I think the legal noise level is 88 decibels, which is, by police standards. I may be off, don't hold me to that number, but we stay way, way below that for that reason.
Okay.
Wish you the best of luck. Good luck.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thinking of
More
buying an
question
old boat for you to redo. You do some great work. Nice work.
Alderman Shell Pepper?
Appreciate it.
Jason, did you make your findings on your COP prior to the updated CUP that was presented in terms of, adding the snowmobiles and all that? Because you said that there was an update, right? That it was amended.
Right. It's
And
in
you
your,
made your findings after that. You completed your CUP after that update.
yeah.
What you have in your
It-
packet is up to date.
What they did was, my finding was that there should be no outside storage of boats, and the plan commission decided it should be more than boats. It should be, snowmobiles and et cetera. So I agreed with that finding.
In terms of storage.
Yeah, no outdoor
Okay.
storage
Yeah,
of anything. We don't want this to turn into a storage yard.
yeah. What do we have in that area right now already? There's a U-Haul shop, other industry, I'm just trying to think, go ahead. Storage facility right next to it. Yeah, I know there's a storage facility right behind it. Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah.
On your screen, it's not coming up right now, but we have the storage facility directly to the south, and we have the Lake Country Motel on the corner there to the north.
We haven't heard anything from the motel. They haven't had, the owners there haven't had any sort of feedback. They've been sent notice. There's no
Been sent
concern.
notice, there's been a sandwich board on this
Yeah.
property, so there's been no response.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I'd like to go ahead and entertain a motion.
So moved, Ellis.
Second, Rozick.
Any further discussions or questions for Mr. Gallo or the applicant? Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis?
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg?
Aye.
Alderman Mulder?
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper?
Aye.
Alderman Douglas?
Aye.
Alderman Rozak?
Aye.
On to consider act on preliminary plat for the Arrowwood subdivision at 9740 Valley Road. Mr. Gallo.
I feel like I'm up here a lot tonight. Arrowwood subdivision. This is the preliminary plat. You've seen this before when they came through for the zoning change. We put a general development plan, a PD overlay on top of it, and that kind of created the number of lots and the access points and the general road configuration, the use of, this is that one that's got single-family homes, and it's got something called some twin homes. They're on their own individual lot, but they're a duplex. That's what a twin home is. So since they've come in now, has been a change since the GDP, but it's an insignificant change. They've increased the lot count by 4 home sites from 299 to 303. The reason for that is the property to the northwest corner of this one went to talk to the county about getting a county access permit, and there was some visibility issues there, and they said the county really encouraged them to have just connections internally only. So we asked Arrowwood to come back and take one of their cul-de-sacs and extend the road all the way to the south lot line. And they've done that graciously, and at their cost, they're gonna do that. But they said, hey, since the road's a little longer, we could sneak a couple more lots out to help cover the cost. We thought that was an acceptable compromise. That way we're not doing the reconstruction of a county trunk highway, and there'll be no additional access out on the Concord Road, and they're getting a couple extra lots to pay for that extra utilities and road connections. So that's the only change. Everything else is very similar to the approved general development plan. The applicant is here to answer any questions that you might have, if you have any.
I'd like to open it up for questions. Alderman Shellpepper.
The goal of the development is to bring attainable housing to the city of Oconomowoc for first-time homeowners. Can you talk about attainable housing? I mean, what does that mean precisely to the developer? It's a good thing. I mean, I'm just trying to water down, nail down on that.
Matt Cuddy with Viridian Homes. We went over this quite a bit in the public hearings both times, but what we're trying to do and what we were able to do with the way that the site plan was laid out was to create some smaller home sites. We're still going to have larger homes on them, but it's going to be able to be more affordable in the sense that your construction costs and your development costs are going to be spread over more lots. So what that does is it allows you to keep your costs down in order to then sell homes at a lower price.
Okay, I guess I wasn't very specific. What does it mean for in terms of cost? How much is it going to cost an average person to buy these homes?
Right. So what we looked at is we think that a significant number of these homes are going to start in the mid threes, which is a big departure from what is currently being offered.
That's great. Still high, but it's better than it has been for sure. So.
Any other comments from council? Like to entertain a motion, please?
So moved.
Second, Spiegelberg.
Any further discussions or comments? Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Thank you. On to consider act on certified survey map for Journey 21 located on the southeast corner of Old Schoolhouse Road and Hackney Way. Mr. Gallo.
Thank you. The Plan Commission recommended the CSM to you. It's takes one lot and it divides it into 3. This is more of a housekeeping item for the Journey 21 project. So you've already seen that project and you approved that. But lot 1 will be for the enrichment center, and then lot 2 will be for the residential uses, which includes the lodge and the cottages. Now for lot 2, that might be coming back to you, so don't be surprised. They may want to do a condominium plat and have that as individual ownership for those units. Both in the lodge and the cottages might all become condominiums. That hasn't been figured out yet, but at this point, this CSM will create a lot for the enrichment center that has frontage on both Old Schoolhouse and Hackney Way, and then the lodge and the cottages will have frontage on Hackney Way with an access easement out to Old Schoolhouse Road. The remaining area of the parcel is under the ownership of Pabst Farms. That's Lot 3, that's a 12-acre lot. We have no idea what's going to happen there at this point, but it is, has both residential and business zoning on it, so that'll get straightened out as soon as a tenant comes in and wants to purchase that. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
We also have the applicants here if you have questions, folks. Alderman Rozak.
So the certified survey map's going to cover the Journey 21 two parcels and also this third parcel
The
that's
remnant
still
piece.
owned by
Pabst Farms.
Pabst Farms. Why are we doing it like that? Why aren't we just doing a CSM for just Journey 21?
That's so they can, so Pabst Farms can sell the land off of Lot 1 and Lot 2. The remnant piece is less than, there's a state statute of 20 acres or something, so it has to be shown.
I didn't mean to pick at a scab tonight about the planning commission, but I voted against this project because I didn't think it was a good spot for it. Not that the project itself wasn't good. I liked the project a lot, actually, but our own website says the function of the planning commission is to review all development proposals in the city. These actions are based on the master plan, which has a general purpose of guiding and accomplishing a coordinated, adjusted, and harmonious development to the municipality. So again, I'm going to vote against the CSM because I don't think that this is harmonious for the area. The planning commission on 2 occasions, both this and Hackney House, have done what I consider hodgepodge spot development and has allowed a master plan and comprehensive land use plan to be just changed willy-nilly based on the developer Johnny-come-lately. There's no actual master plan apparently anymore that we're following. There's no land use plan, comprehensive land use plan we're following. We're just doing whoever comes now with cash in hand to make changes. It's one of the things I think we do need to look at further for that area because we continue to do hodgepodge development out there. And like we just heard from you, Jason, we're going to change the CSM for the land behind that's owned still by Pabst, and we'll figure that out later on, fix that when another developer comes in. What's going to go there? We'll see. Whoever comes up with cash. So I'm voting against this. Again, just like I said last time, this has nothing to do with the project itself. I think the project is very cool. It's going to look really nice. I don't think it's the right spot based on our master plan and our comprehensive land use plan. So that's why I'm still voting against this one.
Any other comments, questions? Would like to entertain a motion?
Yes, it's my night, so moved.
Second, Douglas.
Any other comments? Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis,
Nay.
Alderman Spiegelberg,
Aye.
Alderman Mulder,
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper,
Nay.
Alderman Douglas,
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Nay.
Tie breaking again, Mayor.
Twice in
Oh,
one
wait,
night.
excuse me.
It's 3-3.
Yep, it's 3-3.
3-3. Yes, 3-3. I just had to relook at that.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
For my future knowledge, what would have happened if we voted this down?
I was just thinking the same thing.
I mean, what is that? Seems entirely unfair to the developer, but I'm just curious from a legal standpoint, what would happen next, Dan?
Lawsuit.
Exactly. One comment I just want to make to
Because you guys
council is
voted
that,
for a zoning change.
one comment I just want to make to council that I think is valid is that Alderman Rozak brings up a point about a master plan for this area, which we have requested and required for things to move forward. So nothing's going to move forward beyond this development without that happening. And the landowner is fully aware of that. So we're trying to fix possibly some things that were done poorly in the past, but we shouldn't do that at the expense of something good for the community is why I voted yes. So oftentimes, my goal as mayor was to never vote, and I've lost it twice today. So I feel loved, but it really isn't about that. It's about having good conversation and banter. And so I think the public needs to realize that there may be times that people vote against things, and their reasoning is very good, but even though it doesn't pass, doesn't mean that it doesn't have validity. And if we as a council don't take the negatives along with the positives and just continually make things better, then these little projects of here, we'll just put this shiny thing over here, that shiny thing over there, But what I do want to do in this whole process is stand up for the Plan Commission, because it's an outstanding group of folks. The current one, I can't comment on previous ones, that are really trying to do things right. And so I just want to put my 2 cents out there so that the community who's listening, which is probably 2 people, and the rest of us here in the room really think about that, because I think if we continue to try to work together on these things, good things will happen as we move forward. So thank you. Let's move on to new business. Consider act on Resolution 21-R2992, declaring authorized representation to request grant funding from Surface Water Planning Grant Program. Mr. Fry.
Thank you, sir. Fowler Lake, every 5 years, we have to renew our permit for the aquatic plant management, the cutting of the plant material in the lake. As part of that process, DNR requires that we go out and have a study done to see what's plant life is in the lake, where it's at, how it's been acting, compare it back to the last 5-year plan, and then come forth with a new cutting plan for the lake. Cost of that's approximately $7,000. We're submitting for a grant that would cover 4,900 of that, or I'm sorry, 4,700 of that, leaving the city responsible for 23. We have obtained this grant in the past.
Comments or question for Mr. Fry?
I'll move Resolution 21R2992.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Can't you just sit there, Mark?
Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
On to consider act on 2022 Western Lakes Fire District operational and capital budgets. Chief Bowen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In your packet tonight was the amended Western Lakes 2022 budget for both capital and operating. We had our last meeting as the joint owners, and there was the amendments made that you included in this year's city budget overall. Lori had brought those amendments forward. However, the Common Council had not adopted our budgets yet as a whole, so we brought that before you tonight.
Do we have any questions for Chief Bowen?
Yes,
Alderman
Mr.
Chief, can you talk to the 2 people watching? Why do we have a 15.73% increase while all the other municipalities seem to be much lower than that?
Sure. So the reason for that, the first is the other municipalities had past debt that they were paying off. That's why theirs actually dropped. They paid their last debt payment as part of this year's budget. So that was a portion of that. The other portion of that is the funding formula, which is based on call volume, land value, population, and improvement value. So it's a formula that goes in for all of the municipalities, but the biggest portion for the changes of the other municipalities was their past debt that they were paying a loan that the district had. We're now moving forward, all municipalities, if they take on debt, that's on them, on their own. But back in 2017, when we formed this, the district still had loan payments that had to be made, so they were paying that portion to us.
Thank you. One more, can we talk about the communications or the consultants? Is that this right
That's-
here, or is it in the next slide?
That's the next line
Okay,
item.
save it for that one.
Like to entertain a motion?
So moved.
Second, Shell Pepper.
Any further discussion? Alderman Rozak.
Just briefly, we voted on a full budget for the city last Tuesday. Is this usually the way we do this, is voting on this after? I usually think we vote on this before, don't we? We vote on our
In the
budget?
past, I thought.
It doesn't matter?
But we've done
Okay.
it the other way.
In a way, it's a good thing because his changed again.
So the budget that you guys adopted for the city, yes, normally you would adopt ours prior to, but you made all of our budget amendments as you went through your city budget.
Gotcha.
But really for the district, we need your approval to have our budget overall adopted.
And part of this budget also includes some of the increased costs for interns and what I consider critical public safety funding. And that's part of the reason we did what we did with our budget as well. And I think these are harmonious in that sense. So,
Yes, that was the biggest factor, is paying our interns minimum wage.
Thank you, Chief.
It was a good point. It was the opposite last year.
Yes.
Good. We have a motion and a second. Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
On to consider act on the approval of the Western Lakes Fire District to enter into an agreement with Mueller Communications for communications and education consulting services for fire and EMS. Chief.
All right, before you is a memo with regards to an RFP that was released. The last 2 months, we've had a work group, which Alderman Mulder was part of. We had one representative from every municipality that receives fire EMS services from the district, owners and contracts, to evaluate the long-term sustainability of staffing and funding for fire and EMS. We had released an RFP to consider hiring a firm to assist us with communication and consulting services to educate the elected officials, but also our communities at large. We had 2 bids on this. You can see the ranking of the 2 bids. We also did, in addition to reviewing the packets, the proposals, and the cost analysis, we also did in-person interviews with both firms. Mr. Fry, Mr. Mulder, and Lori were also part of that. And overall, the committee as a whole recommends Mueller Communications for the project.
Alderman Mulder, since you've been involved in this, do you have any comments for council?
We did have presentations from both of the groups that, both firms that submitted, and I think it was very clear that Mueller was the better choice, even after seeing the scoring rubric where they came out on top. They have a vast experience in doing this. I would say this is one of the primary functions of their firm versus the other one, which what I would say is a more traditional PR firm with some specialty in, civic engagements, but not specifically to referendums. And in fact, when we asked them about referendums, they were surprised that they hadn't gotten any additional work in that area and weren't certain why. So not a lot of, confidence in choice number 2, I guess, not to disparage them. They do great work, just not in the specific area that we're looking for. So I thought it was a great discussions, and I think we have a really qualified organization.
And just a kind of a thank you to Alderman Mulder, so council's aware, he went to, his 3-hour meetings?
3-hour-plus meetings and homework in
On behalf
between.
of council and the city as our representative in this process, so thank you, Matt. Alderman Rozak.
Is that why you think there was the big point differential and the technical points, there was a 7.6 point differential swing between these 2 companies? Do you think that was primarily the reason, was just the difference in experience?
I do, and if we'd had 3, the red shoes wouldn't have made the cut because they didn't hit the 80% that they need to. But because there's only 2, we moved them forward anyway and opened the envelope. Is that, Mark, correct? So,
Okay.
They didn't actually qualify to have their envelope opened. Had we received a 3rd response, we wouldn't have, so.
Gotcha. Okay. Oh, I did have one other comment.
Just second, Alderman Schulpepper.
Well, go ahead. Say what you
Yeah,
want to say.
I think I'm in favor of moving forward with this, but I do it cautiously. We've had other referendums in the city from notably the school district that have been less to educate and more to manipulate and come up with the goal. They were very clear as I went through their packet that, and I've got several, I'm not going to quote them, but several spots where they're saying, we're going to educate the people about this choice. And that's what I really, as the guy that's going to run, essentially how this happens once they kind of take over and you're going to have the main focus on it. I want people to make an educated choice. I don't want them to be manipulated into a choice. I don't want promises to be made like what the school district did with some of the Meadowview choices. There was a choice created there. Well, do this and we'll sell Meadowview. It never happened. We're 7 years later, Meadowview's still here, rotting away. So I encourage you as this is going on that the focus really from this company is to educate and just get the information out there, good, bad, or ugly. Here's why we need more full-time firefighters. And here's the cost. And not really to push anybody particular in one direction or other, let those people make that educated choice. So that's my preference. I'm in favor of, again, moving forward with it, but I am cautious.
Quick answer.
Alderman Schulpepper.
Go ahead, Chief.
Oh.
So to your point, Alderman Rozak, this company believes in a holistic approach, and they will continue to not just work with the district, but each of the communities involved. Because a final decision of the direction hasn't been made because of their expertise, they will be evaluating and working with each of the communities to determine what the right direction and process is. They really believe in that holistic involvement with you as a partner and the others as partners and the community. That's really their foundation.
And it's so it's 142,000, right, chief, and 50,000 is coming from the city? That's our cut?
Correct. We utilized the formula to include all the municipalities that receive fire and EMS services. You guys, everybody else has moved forward with this, with the exception of you and the town of Merton, who will be voting next week, Monday, on that. It will be an agreement with the fire board and Mueller. However, you're all a constituent of this, and that's why they will continue to have involvement from the city and the other partners.
Yeah, and it's going to be a pretty expansive communications campaign, because this is going to incorporate quite a few municipalities.
Correct.
How many? Just, I mean, off the top of your
I
head,
think
tell
it's
us.
8.
Okay,
8.
come on, chief, yeah. I'm just kidding. Yeah, well, I think, because I think some people look at the costs and they question, I mean, so we're spending 142,000 for a consulting firm to do communications, and trying to explain that it's an expansive project. It's going to take a lot of time. I mean, can you kind of speak to, just like really briefly, maybe some of like the specific value that this consulting group is going to bring, and how it's, like the deliverables, just like really briefly, and, on some of the main things?
Well, I guess the first was they right now have a 100% track record with working with municipalities, but they've broken it off into 2 parts. Community education, but also community surveying. And with that, they're going to engage, kind of the work group that has worked on this in the fire board, and evaluate and break this into chunks. And they are only going to charge us based on the work that they do, based on what they analyze and see as the need within our communities. And from there, as you couldn't see, they had a very clear outline as to the various steps. And unlike me, who lives fire EMS every day, they work with communities to educate, whether it's fire EMS or police or public works, to provide the constituents with the facts of where we're at and shortfalls, and also the return on investment or the values of those services.
Well, I think we regularly hear about how referendums are something that, citizens ask for, and if that's part of the, something that we want, I think an appropriate public relations campaign needs to accompany such a referendum to do due diligence and justice to the question being presented. So I'm in favor of it. I appreciate you indulging the time on it. I just think it's, it's important to talk about and kind of highlight for the public.
Yep, and they believe in all aspects of communication, not just social media, town hall meetings, city hall meetings,
Perfect.
in person, mailers, et cetera.
Yeah.
Very broad.
A little more color commentary. I think of that 142,000, roughly a third of that is the consulting fee. The rest of it is the surveying fee, the mailing of, I think, 3 postcards. So we're getting a lot out of that. We're not paying someone to sit and think. We're getting the work product as whole there. And Matt, to your earlier comment, I think we're expressly forbidden from sending out flyers that say vote yes on referendum ABC. It has to be education. That's not that there's an innuendo floating around that that could be counter that. But I absolutely agree. This needs to be, let's get the information in front of them. I mean, obviously, if we do a referendum, it's because we believe in the need for it, or we wouldn't do one hoping to get a no vote. So that is out there. But, I think that it needs to be a fair above the board for people to make their own educated decision about, because it's not small.
Another comment is this group worked with 2 municipalities, and I spoke directly with the mayors of those municipalities last August at a municipality meeting in Fond du Lac. Both were extremely pleased with the performance, and it turned out it's the same firm. So that's just nice accolades from those 2 mayors of larger communities than ours. So, any other further comments? Like to entertain a motion, please?
So moved, Shell Pepper.
Rozick, second.
Any further comments? Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozick.
Aye.
I don't believe we have any staff reports unless we're not aware. Okay, we'll move on to reports and comments from Alderman. Any comments from the Alderman? Alderman Rozak?
I just have a couple really quick ones. I know we've been bantering around about this since before the dispatch debate. I think we need, as a city, moving forward, to have a clear policy in our committee of the whole meetings. We either are going to record them, we're not going to record them, we're going to come in here, we're going to go in there. I know, I do kind of like the committee rooms in a sense better, because it does kind of create that kind of, Knights of the Round Table kind of feel, and, you're right across from someone and can yell at them right there. But I do think there's a significant advantage for the community to hear these committee of the whole debates, because we do a lot sometimes in the committee of the whole. So if we think that, I think we've expressed, since at least the dispatch debate and before that we want that. And so, I guess I'm just one alderman, but I am also council president, and I would like us to move forward with being in here or in there recording the committee of the wholes and presenting that to the public. Because it's not just the dispatch debate that's important. There's a lot of debates in the committee of the whole that are very important. So that's one. Second is, you saw that me and Alderman Douglas removed the plexiglass. We were just in that room before for a half an hour without plexiglass. We come back in here, we still have plexiglass, but only on certain sides and, whatever. I'm going to continue to remove the plexiglass. I think it's time to remove the plexiglass. We don't need the plexiglass. If people want to wear masks, they can wear masks and feel comfortable. So that would be something I would request if you guys can make that happen. It's been 2 years, and I think it's time to go. The last thing is, I don't know why my comments on the Planning Commission were taken so out of context. I don't think I was particularly ripping on the Planning Commission. What I have said, and I've said many times, that I don't necessarily always agree with their decisions, which goes to Stan's point that we have kind of our own kind of decision-making process here. But look, I think they've made 2 big mistakes. And I don't know every single guy in that Planning Commission. I know some of them. I don't know what all their qualifications are. But they've made mistakes, and that's my point. And it's mistakes in my head. I think they screwed up 2 big projects. And I think they give us stuff rubber stamps. That doesn't mean I don't think they're doing a good job as a whole. But I don't think they need to be defended. They're doing their votes. They're an appointed board, but they're also citizens of the city, and we can be critical or critique them as necessary. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Any other comments from Alderman? Okay, we'll move on to comments to Mayor, which actually kind of dovetails what you just said, Alderman Rozak. I have 3 items, just as updates for you. One is we are reevaluating all the committee structures, which includes recording or not recording. That's already in process. We've actually just today received an assessment of what's happening with other communities. So our plan is to bring that to you after the first of the year for you guys to have an open discussion to make some final decisions. So that's been in the queue, and I just wanted to give you an update on that, so I want to let you know. But we've heard you loud and clear about the recordings, but we also have looked at the committee structures and say, how can we make them more efficient? Do they all need to be there? What's the best structure? And so what we wanted to do is put all of those together in trying to make a thing moving forward. The other thing that's been done by our staff is we're looking at the actual cost of creating all your packets and delivering all your packets. And when we start looking at those, I have the preliminary numbers, but this was actually generated from a request from Alderman Zapfel a few months ago. So we're looking at that, but we're also looking at IT components so that maybe we don't have to receive all the paper copies, or maybe you get an option to receive it or not receive it. So all of those options, again, that will come up after the first of the year, but I didn't want you to think that anybody was dropping the ball on that, and those are the things moving forward. We're still moving forward in the process of trying to bring forth a nomination for city administrator. I've been working closely with Karen and with Matt, your council president and vice president, and we hope to have some announcements and some directions for people for you to sit down to talk to next week, and so hopefully we'll bring that to you. But that process has been going on behind the scenes as we've interviewed both remotely and in person qualified candidates. So those are just some updates I wanted to share with you, and wish everybody a wonderful coming weekend. And thank you all for being here. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
You've been talking.
Tired over here.
Anybody second?
Spiegelberg, she did.
Favor? Thank you all.
58.
Good, I'm halfway done.